We are back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us. Nick Barris along with Holly Ladd. She's a health and wellness coach. Lots of clients comes on to talk to us, especially during the new year, about everything going. But there's only so much you can do when you're blessed with a certain degree of genetics or cursed, whichever way you want to look at it.
Sure. So let's talk about genes a little bit. And I think we've had this conversation before, but so you're given this set of genes that you inherit from your parents and your grandparents, yada, yada, yada.
Okay.
For many people, there are little mutations, which mean that things can go awry, and yet they don't have to go awry. So just because you have inherited the gene for, say, a propensity for breast cancer, let's say.
Okay.
So you have the gene, and that's about 25% of an influencer,
All right.
but your lifestyle is 75% of an influencer on whether you increase the risk for getting the disease. So how we live and what we do either triggers the gene on, which would maybe create conditions to get cancer, or keeps it shut down, turns it off. And that's called epigenetics. So we have the environment in which the gene lives.
Okay, but you can...
is important. So if you have the gene, it's not necessarily fatalistic that you are going to come down with whatever that gene might lead toward. So that's why it's so important from day one to give your body what it needs to thrive. And we're just learning this. This is all new. This whole notion of epigenetics is probably, maybe in the research community 20 years old.
Okay.
But we're just hearing about it really on or sort of more of a mass scale now. And really it's true. How we imprint our genes and what kind of environment we're creating for them can really help support our health and wellness, and we don't have to be scared. So I have this gene. Okay, well, that means for example, for me, I have a gene that would put me at greater risk for cancer, and so the doctor said, no grilled charred meats. So I can't have crusty charred meats. Yeah, right. Fine, I can deal with that, and limit my alcohol intake. Fine, I can live with that.
Maybe no smoking. Yeah,
maybe no smoking.
That goes without saying.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we can make choices in our life that support our genes in a positive way.
Meaning that you knew that was a propensity, because I think a lot of people maybe, whoever's watching there, either you have a propensity toward cancer or heart disease somewhere in your family. I'm sorry, you just are bound to. And many of us too worry about memory loss or Alzheimer's as you get older, things like blood pressure. But so there are things I'm researching, and just like Jewel did about the end of Alzheimer's, you may have that gene somewhere in your body. That doesn't necessarily mean for sure you're going to get it, or you can do things to delay it as long as possible, and eventually it'll get you. Who knows?
Even minimize its effects.
Minimize it so it's not as bad as you thought it might be.
Right. So all the things that we talk about here, movement, getting out in nature, positive social relationships, diet full of whole foods, fruits and vegetables, drinking a lot of water, getting a lot of sleep. All of these things are foundational to keeping our genes turned off. Gotcha. And expressing the positive and turning off the negative.
Turning off the negative so they don't. All right, let's go to Grady. Grady, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Grady.
I had a brother-in-law that was a doctor one time, and he told him there wasn't anything wrong with him except he drank too much. And the boy never had a drink in his life, but he ate a bowl of popcorn every night, and the doctor, the second one he went to, told him that the popcorn was fermented in his stomach, and it was causing him to have the same effect as alcohol.
I cannot believe that.
Of course, before I had my heart attack, I was riding my bicycle and exercising. Somebody told me I was having going downhill, and of course, it's a bicycle don't go anywhere, and they said I was cheating. I'll hang up and listen to your comments this morning.
Hey, thanks, Grady. I've never heard that, something fermenting in your stomach. Now, Grady, he left us. Now, I was going to ask him, and I'm pretty sure Grady changed his lifestyle. He had massive bypass surgery, right, Grady? Was it last year? And he was a 4-pack-a-day smoker for a long period of time. And if you met him, you talk about how his lungs looked fairly clear or whatever, but even Grady, and he's a smart man, knew it wasn't good for him, but like a lot of people, it's hard to quit. Now, I'm pretty sure, Grady, you don't smoke anymore. I'm pretty certain certain of that, and you can call back and say otherwise. But if you've been smoking 4 packs a day for a period of years, that's a hard thing to quit. But he had the bypass surgery, and I remember he called us the week after the surgery, and he sounded so weak, and he sounds like his own self. In fact, he sounds even better now. If you've smoked that heavily, and then you go through a crisis like that, which obviously gets you to stop and turn everything around, even under such circumstances as his, I assume you can turn things around to a degree. I mean, I don't know what kind of permanent damage 4 packs a day does to you over a number of years. It's got to have COPD, things like that. It's going to mess. But your body can heal to some degree, even at his age, if he quits.
Absolutely. I mean, I've read articles, and I'm not an expert on smoking and all that sort of stuff, but I mean, the day you start quitting, the day you quit, your body starts repairing itself. So, whether it be drinking, whether it be smoking, whether it be, narcotics, whatever it might be that you're ingesting.
That moment it can start.
At that moment, it can start to repair itself. Now, to what extent, how much damage is already done, I'm not exactly sure. But, NPR just came out with this big piece on how the body, every cell in our body regenerates itself every 7 years. So if every cell is regenerating it, from that moment you start giving it good stuff.
Yeah, think about that. If you stop 7 years later, if you stay clean, you're going to have better rejuvenated cells.
Yeah. I mean, theoretically. I mean, I don't know if the science has proven that.
I know. Well, like certain things, I don't know, like lung damage and things along those lines maybe can't always regenerate, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, Grady's proof positive of that, I think.
Congratulations to him, too. I mean, that's such a huge thing.
I mean, and he's a character. He's been with us for like 20 years. I hope he's with us for another 20 years. What, the medical marijuana thing is going to come up again, I think, here in Tennessee. You see, California just went legal with recreational, which is a different ballgame. But CPB oil, the extract from the hemp plant. I mean, I know over at MTSU they have, you walk in, you go, wow, that's marijuana. No, it's hemp. Right. But they're using it to extract this oil, which a lot of people say helps as an anti-inflammatory and a painkiller. It doesn't get you high at all. Again, it's from hemp, not marijuana. Looks the same though. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because that's kind of something that's becoming more and more in the mainstream, even though it's not accepted or even legal everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a whole lot about it other than what you and I have probably seen the same studies, and I do know people that benefit from medicinal marijuana, from pain, in particular cancer, the nausea with cancer treatments, and look, I mean, hemp is something that comes in nature. I truly believe that nature has everything in it that we need to heal. It's just tapping into what works for what, and not having a stigma against, a certain plant for whatever reason. Right.
For all the year, which that kind of has with marijuana. But we're getting past it. And I know the legislature comes back in Tennessee next week, and I guarantee you some aspect of the medical marijuana. No one's saying recreational is ever going to pass in this state, at least not anytime soon. But the medical stuff may be there to move forward even more than we already have to help people out on that. Yeah,
I mean, I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful.
I think so. I mean, that's all right. Aside from the food stuff, we were talking about that. Just I asked you before you started the show what you'd like to talk about, and more than just were you saying that mindset, or where did you want to go with other things that we haven't talked about in the past with you?
Well, I think that what we really tend to focus on here is food and movement, and those are two.
That's kind of because that's what I like to talk about.
Right, and those are two really powerful fundamentals of good wellness. Okay. But I think we also have to be aware of the fact that those two aspects are not what wellness make. Like, you can have those two firing really well, but if you have a high stress job, if you're surrounded by negative people in your life, if you're sleeping 5 hours a night, if you're not doing other things to support yourself, you could still end up with health issues. And that's why I think some people go, wow, look at that person, they run marathons and they had a heart attack. Or look at that person, they take care of themselves. But do they take care of themselves on all the levels that we need to support our health? So, for example, the power of mind-body practices, whether it be yoga, meditation, breath work, guided imagery, the research is coming out that alone can help us reverse disease, that having a positive mindset. And that doesn't mean that we ignore bad things that happen, because bad things happen. Sure. But it's how we react to the bad things. Do we let it eat us up and get into a hole?
Do you do meditation?
I do.
So, just as a routine, how do you do it?
So, for me, I practice transcendental meditation, which is a little bit more advanced. Okay. But I spend 20 minutes alone in the morning before I, do anything.
Right out of bed.
Right out of bed, and it's 20 minutes of just doing a personal mantra. To try to, and do I think about things? Sure. There's constantly thoughts racing through.
Do you sit down in a special place?
I just sit in a chair.
Just in a chair?
Yep,
kind of close your eyes?
Close my eyes.
And you just kind of breathe, and what do you, the transcendental part I know is more advanced, but what are you thinking about, or what's your mantra?
Well, I can't share my mantra.
Is that secret?
It is a secret.
Well, what's the secret?
I don't know. It's part of this.
Is it private? It's like a HIPAA thing?
But it's a word that's not really a word, so it makes no sense. So when I say it, I don't have a conjuring of, something else in my life.
Okay, so you have a mantra or something that just, for whatever reason, has meaning to you, which is fine, and it probably would have no meaning to me. It's just everyone has their own.
Yeah.
And so you kind of, you think that word, or you say it, but then you also start thinking about maybe other thoughts of what's going on today or what I did last night.
Right. So after you're sitting there, I tune into my breath. I kind of get really calm, and the mantra is repeating. And then inevitably, something will be like, "Oh, what are you going to have for dinner tonight?" And then I realize that I'm thinking about something else. And I go, "Okay, go back to your mantra."
So you're repeating the mantra in your mind?
Yeah.
And is that to try to keep you focused just on what? On not these peripheral thoughts, but just to focus the mantra to clear your mind then? Or
well, just to go deeper into your consciousness. So if you're floating up here at the level of what am I going to have for dinner? What do I need to do today? What's that meeting that all about? You're not going deeper into your consciousness.
What would deeper mean? Like, well, how am I feeling today? Or what would the
nothingness.
Oh, nothingness. Okay. Yeah. So maybe just giving your mind rest, even though you've just gotten up, but you could have been dreaming all night.
Right.
And just there, and you're saying the name, and it could be nothing pops into your head. You just, it makes you feel good.
Yeah, and some days I'll spend most of my time up in this sort of shallow space. And some days I know that I have moments where I'm not really aware of anything.
A little more.
I'm just sort of there.
Yeah.
And what it really does is it allows us to react to stressful situations in a calmer manner. It turns on the parasympathetic nervous system, which calms the stress response, which is really responsible for so much disease in our country. So whether it's the way I meditate, whether it's just doing some breath work, there's a great app called Insight Timer that has guided visualizations, guided meditations from anywhere from a minute to an hour and whatever.
Really?
And you can just sit there and listen to them and still get the benefits of meditation.
I might get that app from you.
It's a great app.
We'll take a break. When we come back, our final segment with our guest right after this. What is the